Hello everyone and welcome back to Monsters of the Mind. As always, I'm your host Mr.G. Today, we're talking about evil spirits from Indian folklore, and these beings are known as the Vetala. I can't actually find a translation for what it means, so if someone knows what this translates to, I would love to hear it. They were a species, they were pretty malevolent, that lived in India, and they come from Hinduism. In Hindu folklore, Vetala don't really have an exact appearance due to their nature as spirits, but considering that they're dead people, it's safe to assume that they're humanoid. Vetala are described as being souls that are trapped between life and afterlife in a realm known as the Twilight Zone. I'm not kidding, by the way, that's its actual name. Vetala were known for hanging around graveyards and possessing the bodies of the dead in order to cause mischief, like killing children and causing women to miscarriage. There are only two ways to get rid of a Vetala. One is by chanting mantras, which will make them unable to hurt you, and the other is to give their original human form a proper funeral, which will free them from the Twilight Zone. It is said that Vetala have knowledge far beyond humans and can even see into the future, and as such many people sought them out in order to keep them as knowledge slaves. The most famous story about Vetala comes from the Baital Paksi, which is a story collection featuring the framing device story of a sorcerer who asked the local king to capture a Vetala for him. He eventually tracked one down to a cremation ground where he managed to catch the spirit. However, on his way back, the Vetala tells him a story that ends with a riddle, and says that if he doesn't know the answer, the Vetala will go with him, but if the king does know the answer, then the Vetala will be allowed to go free. By the way, if the king knows but doesn't answer, then his head will explode. After the story, the king knows the answer, so the Vetala goes free. This goes on for 24 different attempts, but on the 25th attempt at capturing the spirit, it finally tells a riddle that the king cannot answer, so the Vetala finally agrees to go with him, and even tells him that the sorcerer is planning to backstab him. Unfortunately, Vincent can't be here today. After our last video, he fell to the ground clutching his gem in pain and said something like, hope is dying or something, I don't know. So he's out meditating or something like that. So let's just segue right into the card. Okay, I guess I should address the fact that they're calling these things Baitals instead of Vetalas. In fact, Vetala isn't even mentioned anywhere on this card. But I can't really criticize them for that, because I looked it up and apparently Baital is indeed a lesser used synonym for the Vetala. So, they're technically right here, but it's still a bizarre choice. Then again, as we'll see later on, some of the animal cards use their lesser-known names, so I'm not really going to complain here. The only real error I can find is that it claims that the reason that the king managed to finally beat the Vetala with the riddles was because he refused to answer. But as I said earlier, the story clearly said that if he refused to answer, he would die. The real reason the Vetala finally went with him was because the Vetala finally stumped him. So yeah, 9.5 out of 10. And as for pop culture, apparently they were in Supernatural or something like that, I don't know. They've probably been in more Indian media, but I generally only try to focus on media that's more worldwide, so that's all I could really dig up. That's all for this episode of Monsters of the Mind. Join us next time when we talk about a monster that'll leave you wrapped up. That pun made no sense. Meanwhile... And so I told that witch, "What, you don't need a broom, you need a vacuum cleaner at this point." Oh, very funny, Count. That was just a riot. You? What are you doing here? Oh, it's funny you mention that. I have a new host now, and now I'm here to take revenge on everyone that failed me. And you, Count, specifically, were probably the biggest failure of them all. Failure? It's not our fault that when we attacked him, he had finally fully gained control of his powers. I don't care. You guys, all you had to do was kill him, and you are supposed to be the most powerful vampire in the world, but I guess that's just a lie. Hey, now you're making it personal. Then why don't you do something about it and prove that you're actually a tough guy? Alright then. Since I don't really feel like drawing a fight scene, let's just skip ahead a bit. Wow, just wow. You actually managed to put up a pretty good fight. I'm impressed. But at the end of the day, you still lost. It's so cold. Good. I hope you freeze to death, you pathetic excuse of a vampire. But you're not all useless. I guess I could use you for something I'm planning. No. Those failures have been taken care of. Well, only one person left I have to deal with before I can move on to Vincent.